Holly Becker. I am the daughter to Brad and Linda Becker, and the older sister to Corey and Bailey. I'm also a granddaughter, niece, cousin, friend, and most importantly, a child of God. I was here in this exact place about 8 years ago and shared my life and faith journey. Many of you heard my story before, but also many of you haven't. I'm here again tonight to tell you my story and the impact that God has had on my life. I was born on May 7th, 1984. My parents knew something wasn't right from the beginning, but the doctors told them I was just a colicky baby. One day, my legs stopped moving, and they knew something much more serious was wrong. They brought me into the doctor again, and it was determined that I had a neuroblastoma tumor on my spine. I was only 8 months old when I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and given a 50-50 chance of survival. I had 2 surgeries, one on my spine and one on my abdomen to have the tumor removed. Thankfully, the doctor successfully removed it, and I didn't have to have any type of chemo or radiation afterwards. However, I was left with no feeling from my waist down, and because I couldn't feel my legs, I ended up fracturing the growth plate in my left femur when I was only 1 year old. The doctors told my parents I would never walk again, and I would also be in a wheelchair for the rest of my life. But little did the doctors know how much fight and determination I had in me at such a young age. Through physical and occupational therapy, and also the use of lower leg braces, I learned how to walk on my own. During that next 15 years, I had a total of 26 surgeries that included back surgeries, straightening my knees, putting my hip back in its socket, which also required me to be in 5 body casts. Ask my mom about trying to carry around a body cast. It's a bit difficult. I also had a couple leg lengthening surgeries, which is where they drilled in pins into the side of my leg and then cut the bone in half. And then I took a wrench a couple times a day and I turned it and took that fixator and I pulled it apart. And once it got to the length it was supposed to be, it grew in and then my legs were the same length. But all of these surgeries definitely weren't very easy, but I knew that God and my parents would always be there by my side and watch over me. With God and my parents always being there and encouraging me, I always felt like a normal kid. My childhood was definitely not like many other children. I had many surgeries and was usually in a cast or wheelchair. Although I had these obstacles, I never let that stop me from being a kid, and my parents always treated me like a normal kid too. My mom even made me take Philippians 4:13, which Pastor Todd read, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me," into my desk to remind me every day not to give up on myself. In gym, I adapted certain activities and games, so I was able to participate in them with class. My mom and dad also taught me how to ride a bike without training wheels and how to play basketball. I also played with the neighbor kids as much as I could, and they rarely made me feel like I was any different than them. When I was in high school, I had 2 significant events that not only changed me as a person, but also put my faith to a test. When I was a freshman in high school, I found out that the scar tissue around my spine had grown into a tumor over the years. After all I had been through, I was devastated that I had another tumor and yet another surgery to endure. I was also mad at God for why this happened to me yet again, but soon that anger turned into confidence, knowing that He would be by my side through anything. I had surgery to have the tumor removed, and then when the test came back, the doctor walked into the room and said, "Benign, benign, benign." We thanked God that it wasn't cancerous. When I was 16, I had surgery to straighten out my right knee. On Sunday, October 29th, 2000, my life changed forever, and I remember that day like it was yesterday. I came here to church with my family, and afterwards I was talking to people about how I was going to start back at school the next day full time. That afternoon I didn't feel very well, so I laid down and took a nap. When I woke up I still wasn't feeling well and thought we should take a look at my incision. We noticed it was a little bit red, and that didn't look quite right. and that it was best for me to be transferred down to Minneapolis Children's Hospital. That next morning, the doctor confirmed that I had a staph infection and needed to have surgery to have it drained. I went into surgery around 4 o'clock that afternoon, and what was supposed to be a 45-minute procedure quickly turned into a much longer and scarier procedure. My doctor finished the surgery, and the surgical team was completing my PICC line, which for those of you that don't know is a more permanent IV. As they were moving me from the operating table to the radiology table, my vitals dropped drastically. I was touch and go for several hours, and after they were finally able to stabilize me, they moved me into ICU. When I woke up the next morning, I panicked a bit. I had a tube in my throat and it was daylight out. My parents came by my bedside and I was doing motions to them, trying to figure out what time of the day it was, because I knew it wasn't night and that something bad had happened. They told me the time of the day and explained to me what happened. They also showed me a card that I got from my sisters, and on it read, "Happy Halloween." I woke up on Halloween morning. Tears quickly filled my eyes, and as I realized that a whole day had passed, and I didn't even know it, it was one of the scariest feelings I'd ever had, knowing that an entire day had passed. When the ventilator was removed, the first question I asked was if I was ever going to sing again. And those of you that know me know that I can still sing. We then were talking about what happened, and I asked if Pastor Larry had been there. They had said yes and asked why. I said, I saw him standing over my bedside, and that he said that he and God had loved me, and he was going to read me his favorite passage out of his red Bible. Which, for those of you that don't know, when Pastor Larry went to do visits, he would always bring his small, very travel Bible, but he was in such a hurry that night to get down to see me that he just grabbed the first thing, which was his big red Bible. But that was all I remembered that night, besides seeing the white light. I also told them that I woke up during surgery, that I thought I woke up during surgery, because my eyes were taped shut, and I could feel something being poked into me, but it turns out they were just putting in another IV in the ICU unit. A couple months after this happened, I had to have another surgery to have those plates and screws removed. I ended up crashing on the operating table again, but thankfully it wasn't as bad that time. Going through this as a teenager and knowing that I almost lost my life was very hard on me, and also put my faith to test. I prayed. I really turned to God and my family for help, comfort, and guidance for dealing with what happened. I prayed to God all the time, asking Him to help me feel better and to help me be at peace with what happened. The things that happened during this time really showed me how much God really does exist and how miracles really do happen. It also opened my eyes to not take anything for granted and to live life to its fullest. Although these events were very tough on me for the most part, I had a great time in high school. One disappointment, though, was that all I wanted to do was sing, and I even tried out for the pop singers. But I was told that I couldn't be in it because I couldn't dance. It's too bad that he wasn't around back then when I had tried out. On the bright side, I loved to hang out with friends. I was very rarely at home on a Friday or Saturday night, and if I was, my friends were there with me. My dad and Grandpa Hollis taught me how to drive a car, and I got my driver's license. I had a part-time job. I even had a couple boyfriends. I went to prom 4 times. I was crowned Snow Days Queen, and I graduated from high school. After high school, I went on to college at St. Cloud State. College was an obstacle for me. I had some really great times, but also some difficult ones. I enjoyed going to class, being able to work more, and also having fun with my friends. The tough times for me were academically getting through college, physically walking around on campus, and also making new friends. I knew eventually these things would get better for me, but it was hard to remain confident during the tough times. I kept on pushing forward, and being myself, I knew that all things would fall into place. During college, there were a few times I felt like I had strayed away from my faith and didn't turn to God as much as I should. But when I did, I could always feel His presence and knew that He was always with me, even when I didn't take time to realize that He was. In May of 2007, I graduated from St. Cloud State with a degree in marketing. About 3 weeks after graduation, I entered the real world and landed a big-hit job at Target Corporation in Minneapolis. Before accepting the position at Target, I was also offered a job here in St. Cloud. I prayed long and hard about it, and ultimately decided that the road that God wanted me to go down was down to Minneapolis. Within a 2-week time period, I had started a new job, found an apartment, and also started my journey to Minneapolis. When I first moved, it was definitely an adjustment for me. My job ended up not being exactly what I thought it was going to be. I didn't have any friends in the area, and I lived by myself and felt alone. I found myself having more conversations with God and asking Him for guidance and to be with me. I now live in Maple Grove. I still work for Target. I have joined a book club and also a 20s and 30s church group where I've made some great friends. I have to say that the last 5 years have been one heck of a ride, but in the end it's all been worth it. I'm so blessed with where I'm at in my life and that I've grown in my faith and my relationship with God. Like it says in Jeremiah 29:11, I know that God has a plan for me, and while over the years it's been hard for me to understand that, I now truly believe that and fully put my trust in Him. Everything happens for a reason, and although we may not understand why at the time, there will be a day when we do. I've always had a sense of who I am and what I believe, but I'm now confident enough in myself that I'm not afraid to show it, and no matter what, God is always with me.